Here we will see GridViewControl in ASP.NET. GridViewControl is used to display data in tables on a web page. It is basically a table presentation based on the values that come from one data source. It displays data in rows and columns, where each column represents a field and each row represents a record. It helps to perform key activities like insert, delete, sorting, paging, etc. Different features of GridViewControls are: it gives the facility to bind to the data source control such as SQL data source. It provides built-in sort capabilities, update and delete capabilities, paging capabilities, and row selection capabilities. It gives programmatic access to the GridView object model to dynamically set properties, handle events, and so on. It provides multiple key fields. It supports multiple data fields for the hyperlink columns, and it gives customizable appearance through themes and styles. The GridViewControl can be created using the design section by dragging and dropping the control from the ASP.NET toolbar window, or it can also be created from the markup section using the following code: GridView, ID, and Run at Server. Different properties of GridViewControls are: ID, which is used to gets or sets the programmatic identifier assigned to the server control. Access key property is used to gets or sets the access key that allows user to quickly navigate to the web server control. Allow custom paging property is used to gets or sets a value that indicates whether the custom paging is enabled. Allow paging property is used to gets or sets a value indicating whether the paging feature is enabled. Allow sorting property is used to gets or sets a value indicating whether the sorting feature is enabled. Alternate row style property is used to gets a reference to the table item style object that enables user to set the appearance of the alternating data rows in GridViewControl. Back color property is used to gets or sets a background color of the web server control. Auto-generate columns property is used to gets or sets a value indicating whether bound fields are automatically created for each field in the data source. Auto-generate delete button is used to gets or sets a value indicating whether a command field button with a delete button for each data row is automatically added to the GridViewControl. Auto-generate edit button is used to gets or sets a value indicating whether a command field column with an edit button for each data row is automatically added to a GridViewControl. Auto-generate select button is used to gets or sets a value indicating whether a command field column with a select button for each data row is automatically added to GridViewControl. Data member property is used to gets or sets the name of the list of data that the data bound control binds to. Data source ID property is used to gets or sets the ID of the control from which the data bound control retrieves its list of the data items. Delete method property is used to gets or sets the name of the method to call in order to delete the data. Header style property is used to gets a reference to the table item style object that enables user to set the appearance of the header row in a GridViewControl. Page size property is used to gets or sets the number of records to display on a page in a GridViewControl. Row header column property is used to gets or sets the name of the column to use as a column header for the GridViewControl. Rows property gets a collection of GridView row objects that represent the data rows in a GridViewControl. Row style property is used to gets a reference to the table item style object that enables user to set the appearance of the data rows in a GridViewControl. Selected row property is used to get a reference to a data grid view row object that represents the selected row in the control. Selected row style property is used to get a reference to the table item style object that enables user to set the appearance of the selected row in a GridViewControl. Selected value property is used to get the data key value of the selected row in a GridViewControl. Select method property is used to set the name of the method to call in order to read the data. Show footer property is used to get or sets a value indicating whether the footer row is displayed in a GridViewControl. Show header property is used to get or sets a value indicating whether the header row is displayed in a grid view control. Sorted ascending cell style property is used to get or sets the CSS style for a grid view column when the column is sorted in ascending order. Sorted ascending header style property is used to get or sets the CSS style to apply to the grid view column heading when the column is sorted in ascending order. Sorted descending cell style is used to get or sets the style of the grid view column when the column is sorted in descending order. Sorted descending header style property is used to get or sets the style to apply to a grid view column heading when the column is sorted in descending order. Tab index property is used to get or sets the tab index of the web server control. Width property is used to get or sets the width of the web server control. Different methods for grid view controls are data bind, which binds a data source to the invoked server control and its child control. Dispose method enables a server control to perform final cleanup before it is released from memory. Equals method determines whether the specified object is equal to the current object. Focus method sets the input focus to a control. Perform data binding binds the specified data source to the grid view control. Sort method sorts the grid view control based on the specified sort expression and direction. Different events for grid view controls are data binding, which occurs when the server control binds to a data source. Data bound event occurs after the server control binds to a data source. Disposed event occurs when a server control is released from memory, which is the last stage of the server control lifecycle. Init event occurs when the server control is initialized, which is the first step in its lifecycle. Page index change event occurs when one of the page button is clicked, but after the grid view control handles the paging operation. Page index change event occurs when one of the pager button is clicked, but before the grid view control handles the paging operation. Row command event occurs when the button is clicked in a grid view control. Row created event occurs when a row is created in a grid view control. Row data bound event occurs when the data row is bounded to the data in a grid view control. Row deleted event occurs when a row's delete button is clicked, but after the grid view control deletes the row. Row deleting event occurs when the row's delete button is clicked, but before the grid view control deletes the row. Row editing event occurs when a row's edit button is clicked, but before the grid view control enters the edit mode. Row updated event occurs when a row's update button is clicked, but before the grid view controls update the row. Row updating event occurs when a row's update button is clicked, but before the grid view control updates the row. Selected index change event occurs when a row's selected button is clicked, but after the grid view control handles the select operation. Selected index changing event occurs when a row's select button is clicked, but before the grid view control handles the select operation. Sorted event occurs when the hyperlink to a sort column is clicked. Sorting event occurs when the hyperlink to a sort column is clicked, but before the grid view control handles the sort operation. And unload event occurs when the server control is unloaded from memory.